What is going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. Yes, we are back. It's Tuesday. This shouldn't be a surprise to you. If you keep up with us, if you have the notifications turned on, we're here. Yes, we are here, and as ever, co-hosting this thing with me is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, everybody?
Yes. We're here. We're gonna get this conversation started. So let's do that.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Yeah. So Rob, how's your weekend?
It was good. Let's see. I got some actual time off, so that was kind of nice. I actually didn't have to work on the holiday.
Oh, that's nice.
But because it was a holiday weekend, Friday, Saturday, and then today were just pretty brutal as far as like work goes. Just non-stop like busyness, which is pretty typical of a holiday weekend for at work. Was it Saturday? I was working up at the window all day, and man, it was just a lot of crazy people who were. We had some lady that we had to keep telling not to put her dog up on the counter. There was another lady that was just telling us how horrible we are.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know where those dogs. You don't know where those paws have been.
Now, of course, for me, it's one of those things where personally I don't care because I like dogs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand, hey, maybe somebody's allergic to dogs, and so they go up to the counter, and now all of a sudden they, their dog hair gets on them, and then they, seize up and they die.
Right? Yeah.
So it's just, there's always that kind of, like, people aren't really aware of anything but, like, what's going on in their own world. And then, you get people who are, the crazy, entitled, and they don't like they'll come in, they'll ask questions, but then they don't like the answer they're given. So then they tell you how to do your job, and it's like, oh, okay. Do you want to come back here? You want to do my job, and I'll be the customer?
Like, you come back here behind the counter. I'll go. I'll just go over there, kick my feet up with a lemonade, and watch you see how well you do.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So I'll just go home. Yes, clearly you've got this. It always.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's kind of the same way when, for me, when clients would kind of like dictate to me, and it's like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, don't. It's like, do you want to do this yourself? I mean, do you want me to just set the equipment up and then you can take pictures of yourself with the timer or whatever? I mean, yeah, because you hired me to do the job, not by hiring me, you are deferring some level of control to me because I'm the one with the experience, I'm the one with the expertise.
Yeah, it just it gets really frustrating at times with some people. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. There's two really big pet peeves that I have. Is one where you get those people where it's like they're asking you questions, you give them the answer, and then they don't like the answer that they're given, so then they dictate what it they're telling you your job. It's like, okay, well then why did you ask the question? You already it's either they already knew kind of what they wanted, but they're playing dumb, and it's like, why did you do that? Or or kind of they pretend like they know your job for you already, and it's like, come on back here, you do it. The other thing that really frustrates the hell out of me is when somebody will ask a question, and this is just general. This isn't a work thing, where people will ask you a question, and then it's like, oh, what do you think? Do you think this is a good idea, or should I do this? Well, if you're gonna if you don't know, I would suggest this. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go do the other thing. Well, then why the fuck did you ask me? Just do what you want. Like, why waste my time with a stupid question?
Yeah,
my mother does that. It's like a lot of people I know do that, and it frustrates the hell out of me. It's like, don't ask my opinion if you're just gonna do what you want in the end, anyways.
No, yeah, I kind of had a similar situation today with my dad, because today's my sister's birthday, and he asked me to go with him to the market to go pick up a cake. Because I was like, why? But first of all, he's like, why do you need me to go with you? You obviously know how to pick out a cake, and so I was a little irked, because also I was I was doing some editing, or I was trying to do some troubleshooting, because the next episode for the main podcast was there's some problems rendering, so. I had to, it was constantly running into hurdles, and so I had to, again, troubleshoot those. And so, he asked me to go with them, and I was, I'm just like, oh, all right, fine. And, I go to the store with him to go pick out the cake, and, he kind of just instead of just asking me my opinion, he just goes, all right, what kind of cake does your sister like? I was like, fruit, fruit cake, like cake with fruit in it. And my dad's like, okay, we'll just get a fruit cake. That sounds good, right? And he kept asking me instead of kind of being decisive, and that got me really annoyed. Because it's just make a decision. I mean, I told you that my sister likes fruit cake. And so, you should get a fruitcake. Don't deviate from that. And it was funny because we were having the cake. After dinner, and then he was eating it. It's like, oh, I don't like this cake. I should have gotten a coffee cake or something. It's like, yeah, I really like the taste of coffee cake. And I'm just like, I was like, well, yeah, and I was like, well, it's not your birthday, so why would you get my sister? Why would you get your daughter, who really likes fruitcake, a coffee cake?
Well, she'll like what I like, and
pretty much.
She'll be grateful.
Pretty much. Which is pretty much it's kind of like the Korean dad logic.
I still think the steak story is worse, but that's just my opinion. I'm still furious over the steak story.
You and me both, okay? You and me both. All right. Because when my dad was about to put a hole into a perfectly good ribeye, I was just like, see how it's funny because what you're feeling now. This is how I feel when you rile me up about 13 Reasons Why.
God.
Yeah, see, it doesn't feel good, does it? It doesn't feel good, Robert.
Oh God, I just can't. I can't do it. I can't not get upset about that. Hey, you see this beautiful piece of beef right here? Why don't we just throw it in the trash? Because that's essentially what you're doing. Let's just throw it in the trash.
Yeah, Robert. See, that's how I feel about 13 Reasons Why. You get it now. You get it.
But yeah, oh man, today was just one of those days where there was nothing overtly wrong with my day. Overall, to be honest, things are great. Mm-hmm. But it's always a bunch of little things that just get on your nerves. You just wake up you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And today was just one of those days where no one did anything wrong to me, but there was just certain things where I'm like, I just, those little things just keep piling up. Towards the end of the day, I was like, I cannot wait to get the fuck out of here. I was just really frustrated with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way because here I am just trying to, troubleshoot some stuff with the video or editing or kind of working on a photograph or something, and I'm on like a bit of a roll, and then all of a sudden like my dad calls me or my mom calls me or my sister calls me or someone calls me and like breaks the flow and like pulls me out of what I'm doing, and it's just like it's all those, it's like all those like start and stops.
Yeah.
That really kind of wear on you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not necessarily complaining about my family. I love them, and whenever I can, whenever they need my help, I'm definitely willing to lend a helping hand. But it's just like some things are just like you could have figured it out on your own, or you didn't necessarily have to call me. And but I mean, like a part of me thinks like it also like kind of stems from like them not taking seriously like what I do, like photography or like doing podcasts and stuff, and they just think I sit in my room all the whole day, just on the computer, but I'm actually doing work.
You're just wanking it all day to some pornography or something.
Tentacle porn, all right. You know what I like.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But I mean, yeah, it's just like kind of like that. It's like it's a perception problem more than anything.
Don't get me wrong. Like I don't live at home. I haven't lived at home for quite some time. But pretty much that's all my family thinks I do. I think they think I fuck off all the time and just.
Yeah. I mean, granted, doing like the show. Doing this show, weekly, I kind of have to consume a lot of content, just so
Yep.
I could, just so I can like be on top of like certain, certain stories or whatever. And so it looks like I'm just sitting. It looks like I'm just watching, YouTube all day, or I'm just on like news sites or whatever. But I'm actually doing something. It's not just me. It's not just It's not just like when I was a little kid and I would just sit in the front of the TV for 8 hours. There's actually a purpose for me. There's actually now a purpose for me to like be sitting in front of a screen most of the day.
Hell, even me gaming now is like become like I'm not just gaming to game much anymore. I'm actually doing stuff more with like writing and stuff. Because I'm working on some stuff for some blog articles that I'm going to be putting up pretty soon on some games. But yeah, it's gotten to that point. Well, thankfully, like I'm now able to get caught up on the news. I am now able to listen to my podcast again while I'm working. Mm-hmm. So thank God for that.
Oh, because you've been working in the back more recently?
Yeah. And so that I've been able to get caught back up on the news because I've been kind of away for a little bit over a month concerning that.
Right.
So I got my I've been getting kind of refreshing myself on content and keeping up to date, so I'm ready for our live stream or stuff that we're going to talk about on like the main show or whatever. So I'm keeping up to date on that, and which is good because when I get home, that's when I'm kind of either I'm too exhausted to do anything, or B, I'm working on writing stuff for just notes or working on stuff for church or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
actually, because I'm working on where I'm getting ready to do another theology seminar at church.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of going back over all my notes, updating some things, based off of like what we did last time, seeing where I can improve, or I didn't, during the discussion that we were working on, it's like, I didn't think of that, and now I've gone back, done the research, and it's like, I have more stuff that I need to add, that either some stuff that either A, changed my mind, or B, I was like, no, or I didn't quite have the super solid arguments. Now, like, I have more information that I can work with.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well,
And so all of it looks like I'm like messing about, but it's actually we're doing work. It just doesn't look like it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess the long and short of it is we're we look like we're slacking, but we're really not.
I was listening to the one of the Sunday Ben Shapiro specials, the one with Mike Rowe, a little bit earlier this week.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah, I really like that. I really like Mike Rowe.
I'm a huge fan of his as well, and it was funny. One of his he was talking about how he kind of got started with dirty jobs and all that, and he'd been working in the television industry, and it was right around the time, I guess, his grandfather was close to the end, and his mom called him and was like, hey, I think your grandfather would love it if, like, when he turns on the TV, if it looks like you're actually doing work instead of just, All
right, yeah, that was the impetus. That was the impetus for Dirty Jobs.
Yeah, and so a lot of what we're probably doing, or it looks like what we're doing, isn't actually work, but it kind of is. You're putting in a crap ton of work with all the editing and stuff, but
yeah, I mean, with the graphic design and video editing and design and basically I design it. I'm the Tony Stark. I pay. Well, I mean, I don't pay for everything, but I make everyone look cool.
Yeah. Well, that, and it's like, well, I might not look like I'm doing much. There is like a lot of analysis and writing down in notes, and I want to like talk about this, especially when we're doing the movie reviews for the live stream. I'm always like taking down notes, and I'm watching the movie like 3 or 4 times to make sure, like, I like that portion, or I didn't like this. So it's kind of there's a lot of that going on. Or even with like when we were doing Up by Up Down, I was taking notes on the game. I'm playing it beforehand, and trying to have ideas and stuff to talk about, whether it concern the game or just having stuff to talk about. So it doesn't look like I'm actually doing jack shit, but there's some stuff going on.
All right. Yeah. So to that effect, let's get into a couple stories that we have teed up. Why don't you go? Why don't we start with yours first? Oh, right. And quick favor. Remind me to double back on that Mike Rowe thing, because it's not necessarily about Mike Rowe, but it's kind of related. So if I forget, towards the end, it's not like super important, but it's like towards the end.
Okay, I'll try to remember.
All right, just in case, just in case we have like some extra space, we'll throw it in. But yeah, go ahead and with your first story.
Yeah, I got it. So we have a couple of sports things that we're going to be talking about today. I'll start with mine first, and for those who are tuning in for the first time, one of the sports that I enjoy the most is I love NASCAR quite a bit. I know it's maybe that's not a very popular thing, especially out on the West Coast. But I've been a dedicated fan since I was about 3 or 4 years old, and So I've seen, the sport has changed quite a bit, but that's neither here nor there. But this weekend was one of the what are considered the crown jewel events of NASCAR, and the race. It was the race this past weekend. It was kind of, they've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years the kind of a throwback weekend for one of their oldest races, the Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina. And they moved it. This race has historically always been Labor Day weekend, and there was a period of time where they took it away from the Labor Day weekend because fans weren't turning out, and they wanted to move that date to other markets, whatever. But a few years ago, they brought it back to Labor Day weekend, and since they've done that, they've done a celebration of the history of the sport, and they've so all the drivers, all the sponsors have come together, and they've paid homage to the history of the sport by running a ton of retro paint schemes that celebrate past stars of the sport. And people, like, they'll have they'll have retro fire suits, they'll have retro paint schemes, they'll even people have even gone where they'll grow facial hair like the old stars used to have, or they'll wear wigs and kind of do the have fun with it. So this that was so watching the race this weekend, nearly all the drivers had all these retro paint schemes, and the cool thing about that whole, it was just the race was great. The racing there has always been good. It's one of those racetracks where the surface is very rough. The tires wear out quickly, so there's always your drivers are trying to manage their tires. They're what is called racing the racetrack, because if you overstep you try to do more than the car will allow, you're in the wall. And so you're racing hard, yet you're also like trying to not wreck at the same time. So there's a lot of that. And something I like about NASCAR that I don't think a lot of people get. It's like, oh well, it's just people going around in circles. But there's a ton of history. It's not just about like the racing itself. I mean, obviously that's the main point. But NASCAR has a ton of history. Like this race in particular, they've been racing at this particular racetrack. It was the first racetrack that was over half a mile in length. It was the first racetrack that was paved that they raced at. Fully paved racetrack that they raced at. It was the first race that was over 200 miles that they would race at. And what was the other? And yeah, so they've been racing there since 1950. So they've been racing there for almost 70. This one racetrack. They've had some of the another fun distinction about this particular racetrack. There was one race where they've had the largest margin of victory, which was 14 laps ahead of the second, first and second place. Or the first place driver won by 14 laps, and it also had the closest margin of victory in NASCAR history, which was 2/2000ths of a second. So pretty much like 6 inches, just maybe like an inch was the margin of victory.
Wow.
So yeah, and I encourage you, if you want to watch a great finish, check out the 2003 Trans-South Financial 400, or maybe it was I forget who the sponsor of that race was, but 2003 Darlington finish between Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven, easily one of the greatest finishes ever in NASCAR. There's a lot of them, but that one is, man, talk about edge of your seat action. That's if you don't like that, like, it's just you don't have a pulse.
That sounds like I know NASCAR doesn't get the the recognition that some of the other like premier sports do, but it's just I mean, because I'm kind of like a history nerd, and I always enjoy sometimes I enjoy the history of something more than I enjoy the thing in and of itself. And I mean, the whole like NASCAR spawning from like moonshiner and run runners.
Yep.
That's always fascinating to me because so NASCAR is literally an outlaw sport.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, it's the only sport that I know of that where they pray before the start of a race. I mean, every opening ceremonies, it starts with prayer, and it's one of the few sports where all the stars, they're all very patriotic. The particular driver that won this particular weekend, he's not my favorite driver. He's actually he's a driver that
who are you talking about?
The driver who won this weekend was Brad Keselowski.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand him as a driver. I don't like his personality. But one thing I do respect about him a lot is that he does a lot of charity work. His foundation does a lot for wounded veterans.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of stuff for the military. And he always celebrates his victories. He does a burnout, but he has a giant American flag that he gets from his team, sticks that in his car, and just he celebrates America when he wins. So in that sense, I respect him a lot as for doing that.
He's a jerk. He's a jerk with a heart of gold.
Exactly. It's one of those things where I don't hate the person, but there is kind of a personality, the racing personality I don't care for, because it's kind of, he usually ends up tangling a lot with the drivers that I like. So, but just as a person and like what he does in general, I think is really awesome. And a lot of the drivers are like that. They're all very, a lot of the causes that they do, a lot of stuff with like children or veterans, or a lot of different stuff that they do to help out people in need, which is great. And but no, this particular race, it's kind of cool that there's not too many sports that pay homage to the past and realize that there was something that came before the time that they were born. A lot of the people that are in the sport care about its history and both its past and its future. Maybe baseball would be kind of like that too. I think the way that they keep track of statistics like they do in baseball kind of pays homage to its past and why the numbers in baseball are so important. But I think that's what's unique about about those sports is it's always they're always moving forward, they're always changing, yet at the same time they're not just forgetting about the past or caring about the past. And this is a great weekend where they're celebrating the past while looking towards the future. It's a great race. And it's kind of cool to go back and remember all those.
So they're bridging the gap as it were. So
exactly, yeah.
Looking to the future while paying homage to the past. Especially taking place at that that racetrack that has like so much significance, historical significance to the sport.
Yeah. And
yeah, I can respect that.
yeah.
I can
So
respect
it was
that.
just, it was a lot of, it just, and for me as a fan, I love it because like, oh man, I remember, this paint scheme from like, they had stuff from like 1990 or, these old paint schemes. Like, man, it's cool. And like, they got it, they pretty much got it pretty accurate. Uh, so that was kind of cool. And it's just, it was a fun weekend for the sport. And it's part of the reason why I love the sport, so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because I was watching it with a good friend of mine, and we were watching it live. It was Sunday night was the race, and something that we noticed that was kind of I think is personally kind of cool is they have the the opening ceremonies, the invocation by some pastor from a local church in that area, and after the prayer, everyone like the entire crowd. It was a sold out show too. Everyone and everyone is saying amen. Like it was loud. It was like wow, you don't see that.
So it's kind of like going to church.
Yeah, and most of the people. I mean, it's South Carolina, so a lot of people wear whatever their belief system is, they usually go to church as
right,
whether how hardcore they are as a believer, but at least a lot of them do go to church. And it's just it's just really interesting that maybe it has to do with it is a dangerous sport. There's a lot of danger involved, and death does play. Unfortunately, is kind of
it's part of the sport. It's part of the sport. It's
so maybe that has to do with it, and it also could just be the values of from where the sport started, and even though it's expanded into other markets other than the Bible Belt, that it every race, that's exactly what happens. But it's kind of it's a cool sport, especially if you're a conservative or you like history or you like good stories. I find NASCAR to be might be the sport for you. Maybe you haven't checked it out before. I definitely encourage people who are watching, go to a race, man. It's fun. They especially there's a lot of cool like tailgating that goes on if you go take your motorhome to one of the infields or hang out early, or even if just going on race day, just grabbing getting a beer, getting some stuff to eat. All the racetracks have some good stuff to eat at. Every racetrack is unique, and they do a ton of service to every racetrack does a ton of service for the fans. There's a lot of cool stuff to do, stuff to see, and it's one of the few sports that, like, even on race day, the drivers are giving access to the fans, even up until just before they're called to their cars to before the race starts. I mean, they're signing autographs, they're talking to fans, so there's a lot of like good access to for fans, which is unique from any sport.
Cool.
So, yeah, great weekend, and unfortunately there was some bad news for the sport starting today. Where the team that won the championship last year, one of their sponsors pulled out, and now they're shutting down operations. They're not going to be a team next year, which is they went from a team that was terrible at the bottom, and in less than about 10 years they went from the absolute bottom to the pinnacle of being a champion, and now they're closing their doors because Yeah, pretty sad. Sad to hear.
Hmm.
So it puts a little bit of damper on that weekend, but overall, I'm an advocate for NASCAR. I hope you know, people come and watch.
Hmm. Well, I mean, again, I don't ever think I'll ever go to an actual race, but I don't begrudge it. I can still appreciate it for its history, for its values.
But we're gonna have to take you to a race, Andy.
Maybe.
There we have
Maybe.
was it Auto Club Speedway in Fontana. I mean, it's
I mean,
really easy to get.
I'm not gonna say like dead stop. I'll never go, but yeah. I mean, if there's a weekend where I'm free, why not? Just so I can say, that I have experienced it, and and then I can give, then I can have a bit of a more comprehensive take on it.
We might have to miss a church on Sunday, but I'm gonna have to take you to a race.
Yeah, you'll be taking me to a different kind of church, as it were.
Exactly.
All right. Well, transitioning. Speaking of Sundays in churches, and there was a bit of a commotion going on because Nike had just released its 30th anniversary ad campaign for its "Just Do It" tagline. And the reason why it's garnered so much attention is because they have hired Colin Kaepernick of pig cop sock wearing, Che Guevara shirt wearing, flat national anthem kneeler fame to be the face of that new campaign, which the new tagline reads, "Sacrifice everything to believe in something."
Yeah, believe something. It might even at the risk of everything.
Yeah. Sacrifice everything or believe. Well, let me look it up real fast.
You had it reversed.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, you had the right lines. You just had them reversed.
Oh yeah, believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, here's why that's in this case is absolute horseshit. First of all, Colin Kaepernick in his life has never sacrificed anything. He comes from a place of, he was adopted by a very a very well-off family.
Yeah, it's not like he grew up in the ghetto. Far from it. He was, he was, the child of a white mother and a black father. But then the mother gave him up for adoption, which then he was adopted by another white family, and raised in the suburbs. Had every opportunity opened up for him. Because of his situation. So exactly what has he sacrificed?
And he had, like I said, maybe his sacrifice is that he initially worked hard in sports. I mean, he was drafted as I think he was he was in the baseball draft. He was drafted as a second baseman. I believe it was either the Brewers or the Rockies drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he decided football over baseball. Was picked up by I think he was drafted by the Niners. I don't remember if he was drafted by the Niners or traded. The Niners traded for him.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great, probably year and a half. You made it all the way to the Super Bowl. lost in the Super Bowl to I think it was the Ravens, and then started.
Right, this is like kind of early 2010s.
Yeah, this was maybe like 5 years ago or so. It wasn't that long ago, and then slowly, the league caught up to his the way that he did things. He didn't adjust to great athletes. When the league catches up to them, make adjustments and get they find a way to keep being a success.
Right.
But the ones that don't make it in the sport don't adjust, and he never adjusted.
Yeah, because he had that one good year.
Yeah, and
now he had that one good year, but then that was it. And then the other teams caught wise to his game, the way he did things, and he didn't adjust, he didn't adapt.
He went from being a decent quarterback to a terrible quarterback that could not throw a complete pass to save his life. And from there, he lost his starting job with San Francisco, and then he lost his job with San Francisco altogether. And I think as he started to realize he was losing his notoriety is when he chose to, get woke. Michael Knowles talks about, get woke, go broke. He kind of went down that road.
Right. Yeah, because he knew, he wasn't getting, he wasn't getting the camera time for his exploits on the field, and so he, this whole kneeling thing, this was definitely an attempt to still stay relevant, still get some, it's just kind of like the just trying to lap up whatever attention he still could get, and then also because he knew if eventually he got traded or whatever, then he could just point to the team wasn't supporting me. Or whatever, and so that was a real reason why they let me go. It wasn't because I wasn't good enough. It's because they didn't support me.
And here's why I know that's absolute horseshit too, because there's been a lot of polarizing figures, meatheads, dumbasses that do all sorts of dumbassery in the sport. But they're also incredibly talented and are, kind of the Hall of Fame caliber players. And I mean, there's, if Colin Kaepernick had the talent of, I'll just go in quarterbacks. If he had the same level of talent as Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, any other good quarterback, or you look at someone like Terrell Owens, was kind of a knucklehead.
Yeah.
Did a lot of dumbass shit, yet because he was at the top of his game and he was the best wide receiver, you know what? He kept getting jobs because
a lot of despite despite his antics, despite his dickish demeanor on the field and off the field, he still had the goods. He could still bring it.
Yeah, but the problem is that Colin Kaepernick doesn't have that talent. He's not a Brett Favre. He's not a Terrell Owens.
Exactly.
He's not at that caliber. So here's a guy that maybe if he was a less polarizing figure, he's probably gonna get the backup jobs. He's probably gonna get the third string. He's gonna be on a team because he's someone that elevates his other teammates, or he's not someone that's gonna rock the boat per se. But when you suck and you're a polarizing figure, good luck, because
well, I heard that he was basically poisoned in the locker room.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I mean, this was even before the whole kneeling thing. I heard he was kind of he wasn't a team guy. He wasn't a leader.
Right.
Is what I heard. And he would mainly be off by himself. You know, in the locker room, he wouldn't necessarily interact with any of the other teammates. And so, I mean, your whole job as a quarterback is to be a leader. And so, you know, if you don't gain the trust of, you know, your blockers or your wide receivers or whatever, then you know, they're not gonna perform for you.
No,
I mean, regardless of how good you are, like if you like, if they don't know you, they don't, you know, they're not gonna play for you. They're not gonna block for you.
Yeah, and that's it's just that's what I say is it's you're acting like an asshole, and when you're at the top of your game, teams don't care as long as you can perform and put up the numbers and win games. That's in the end, that's really all that matters. But when when you're all of the terrible things, like you're a cancer in the locker room, you have no talent, you're it just you're not, and you have a just a polarizing way about you where like people really don't like you. You're not going to get the jobs. I'm sorry. And the other thing, and I'll one thing that, you know, concerning Colin Kaepernick, that there's a analyst on ESPN who I don't like, but in this one instance,
what's his face?
Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
Who is kind of a blowhard, but he and he's no conservative by any means. But he had one apt thing about this, because Colin Kaepernick, like when he started all this before it really blew up in the NFL, you know, he was going off about all this stuff, and this is just before the I think it was just before the 2016 election. And when they asked him, "Oh, who did you vote for?" And all this stuff is like, "Well, I didn't vote." And he was very vocal about not voting, and that's where Stephen A. Smith is like, you know, went off on him.
Yeah. I remember. He's like, don't ever like, you know, bring him up to me again. You know, his opinion is like not like no longer, you know, valid or whatever. Yeah, he was genuinely upset with him that you know, for all his words, for all his like, oh, you know, I'm doing this, you know, to bring awareness, you know, of, you know, young African Americans who are being shot by cops or whatever, you know, who are unarmed or whatever. It's just like, well, like, you know, what'd you do to change the system? He's like, oh, I just kneeled. He's like, well, did you vote? Yeah, he's like, did you vote? It's like, no. And like, yeah, I remember. And he's like saying like, oh, well, the system was broken, so why bother participating? And it's just like,
well, and that's pretty
like,
typical.
And it's at that moment that all you know, Colin Kaepernick lost all credibility.
Well, it's like, and he did what Colin Kaepernick does, which is jack shit. And he didn't work on his craft to become a better quarterback. He didn't work on becoming a better teammate. He didn't do anything. And you know, this thing that he claims to care about, when it comes time to actually, you know, put something to action, he didn't do jack shit. So he doesn't care either. That's why he said he doesn't care. He's
yeah. And I mean, yeah, and like he had like those kind of like photo. He had those photo ops with like the veterans or whatever, you know, and the veterans saying like, yeah, you know, I fought for his right to do that. It's whatever's to me.
No, I don't even like go with that anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. Those are just photo ops. Like, but then you know, in like there's like all these like stories coming out about him like starting charities or whatever. It's like, well, why isn't he just working on his charities? You know, why isn't he going out and like, you know, promoting his charity, you know, and just doing that, you know, since no team in the league want to touch him anyways.
No.
You know, why is he doing that? And then like all of a sudden, you know, Nike decides to use him, which I will give props to Nike for using, you know, pulling that move, because, you know, it's doing exactly what you know they wanted it to do, is to get people talking, to get people riled up, you know, They purposely did this so they can get more eyeballs on it because Nike knows that he's a polarizing figure, they know that he is controversial. So why
Well, I think that,
so why would they? So for kind of like the 4D chess, I tip my hat to Nike.
yeah, I think, to me, this is the reason why Colin Kaepernick is doing it, because he's getting a ton of money from Nike, and he probably got a ton of money from Sports Illustrated when they were talking about him, back then.
Mm-hmm.
Is because, okay, I don't have the talent anymore, so I have to find another way to make money by
exactly. He kind of does what aging athletes do, is they kind of become a spectacle.
Yeah, but he was never like a good athlete. Like it's one of those things where
branded.
Well, next thing we'll find out is he's going to become an ESPN analyst or something.
Oh, jeez. Dude, if I swear, Disney, really, because Disney is the parent company of ESPN. If Disney wants to just lose money, they're already hemorrhaging viewers. They're already hemorrhaging. The ratings are are through the floor. They're so bad. And they keep thinking that doing this political analyst pundit kind of thing is gonna make them money. It's like, no, because if people want to see that, then they'll tune into CNN, MSNBC, Fox. That's where they'll go. But the reason why they go to ESPN is so they can get away from that. And they could, so they get just have, it's like getting into sports for a lot of guys, and some women is an escape. It's like, after a long hard day, it's like getting into a jacuzzi. That's what sports is.
Well, this is where because I haven't watched ESPN in, God, probably, we're going on maybe 4 or 5 years now. Mm-hmm. And it's because they kind of went this shift from actually, talking about sports to, it's, Andrew Cleveland calls the New York Times a former, newspaper. I call ESPN a former sports network, because it's not talking about sports anymore.
Sure.
And a lot of the guys that I used to like on ESPN, as far as the analysts and the guys that are, talking about the sport, they've all moved on, because the good ones are ESPN is treated them so terrible, guys like Jason Whitlock, he got kicked off of ESPN. What was it, and Whitlock does another show with another guy that went to Fox Sports and who constantly bashes ESPN every chance he gets. I'm trying to think of his name right now. I'm drawing a blank. Colin Cowherd. He left ESPN for kind of the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of guys that ended up, moving to, whether it be they either moved to Fox Sports, or they moved over to, some of the baseball guys, they ended up moving over to MLB Network, which is, that's kind of why I've kind of cut off a lot of other sports. I haven't watched football in a long time. Basketball I've kind of given up on, and so I've kind of just focused on baseball and auto racing, because a lot of the places where I go to watch my sports news, I want to hear about the sport. I don't care about the players or drivers' politics, or it's I've had enough of. I can get that enough everywhere else. Mm-hmm. I just want to listen about the sport, the things that I care about that are a way for me to relax. And so that's why I've stopped watching ESPN. It's so infuriating.
Mm. Yeah, similarly. That's when I stopped watching SNL, because it was just all the same thing all the time. Just bashing Trump all the time, and sometimes it's warranted, sometimes sometimes it's not. But I just, I don't want to see that every single week.
I mean, SNL has always had kind of, political humor at times, and it's funny. Like, there was...
well, because here's the thing. Because before, they used to attack, somewhat equally. They went after Bush, but they also went after Gore.
Right. And they were always... They were definitely, like, left-leaning, but at the same time, they were making fun of everyone.
Exactly.
Kind of how, like, South Park does stuff.
Oh yeah. South Park makes fun of everybody.
Yeah, but now it's just like it's clearly a a left wing shill. It's like, yeah, I can't watch it.
I mean, because like, what is it? One of the most recent Emmys they got nominated for. I don't know if they won, but they definitely got nominated for was the Alec Baldwin portrayal of Trump, his impression of Trump. And it's like, I've seen it. It's not even that funny, because he hates the guy. Most impressions, most good impressions, they're poking fun. They're not, they're poking fun. They're not they're not stabbing to kill.
Right.
So like you can tell Alec Baldwin's impression is a mean spirited one. It's not light. It's not gently poking fun. It's not gently ribbing the president. He's trying to break ribs.
Right. Whereas you look at someone like who I think is one of the greatest, one of the greater comedians of our era was, Dana Carvey. He did a great George Bush Senior.
Yeah.
He had a great just way that he would kind of
because he did it in a way where he invoked Senior in a way that was he was mocking him, but in a good natured way.
Right. It wasn't because he hated him. It was just more because he thought it's just I can do this voice. I worked on this voice, and it's like I kind of want to. He was doing it in a nice way, even though And the other thing is George Senior loved it. He thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But it wasn't out of spite. It was out of good natured fun, because why not?
Exactly.
So it just I don't know, but going back to the main thing with Nike is I think it's a dumb campaign they're gonna lose a lot of money, and they've already lost a lot of based off their from stock prices, and
right.
I mean, I'm not gonna because I still have some Nikes that I have here that I haven't worn out yet, which I'll still wear, but I'm probably not gonna buy any new ones. Just
right. Well, see, here's the thing that I wanted to get into is the whole Nike boycott or whatever, or the videos of people burning their Nike or their Nike clothing or their shoes or whatever. It's just let's just calm down, because we always because people will always especially on the right, people will be we'll call out we'll kind of make fun of the left, saying what do you think those boycotts are actually going to accomplish? Recently, the whole In-N-Out thing, right. Freaking a leader of the Democratic Party in California called for the boycott of a California institution.
I can't even get it to an In-N-Out anymore because of that.
Right. Yeah. And then what is it really doing when you call for a boycott of something? Especially something so stupid like a burger. It's you're gonna have people who are gonna go to In-N-Out purely out of spite, and then they're gonna take their pictures with their mouths full of double doubles and stuff, and posting it to social media, and kind of doing the exact achieving the exact opposite of what you wanted. But I mean, the
Right.
same thing for like people on the right now who are calling for a boycott of Nike. You know, I think it's foolish. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that I'll never buy Nikes again, but I'll come to that decision a little bit more slowly, is what I'll say.
Yeah, it's not gonna be my first choice. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm. Exactly. That's what I'm. That's exactly what what I would advocate for people to do. Is just like maybe you have a choice between Adidas or Nike. Look at the Adidas, just like 30 seconds longer.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't necessarily at where I exclusively bought Nike shoes. I kind of like just bought like, oh hey, this looks kind of cool, and because I have a
Right,
lot.
Yeah,
I have a lot of shoes, so it's more of hey, what looks nice and isn't like crazy expensive, and
yeah, for me, me too. It was
Nikes.
Yeah, for me too. It was like a big factor. It wasn't even like the brand. It was just like, purely aesthetic and comfort. It's like, do these look cool? Do these feel good?
Yeah.
That was the criteria that I was working with. Not that I have some like brand loyalty to Nike, because there's always Under Armour or Reebok or Adidas.
Right. So I mean, even like I didn't buy a ton of Nikes, but I'm probably not gonna spend a ton of money with them. Just it's just like, all right, well, if you guys want to support people who are terrible, then yeah, go for it. It's fine. I'm just not gonna.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like and there are people who are suggesting or trying to get Nike's attention and be like, hey, why don't you should have used Pat Tillman.
Well, that's never gonna happen.
Of course not. But because
he actually gave up something, unlike
Kaepernick. Right, I know, and that was like and that was kind of the point. It's like you have Colin Kaepernick, you have Pat Tillman. One person is dead because they actually did give up everything for what they believed in.
His multi-million-dollar contract to go.
Yeah, to literally go fight terrorists.
Yeah.
That's what Pat Tillman did. He gave up a multi-million-dollar contract with the Arizona Cardinals to go literally fight terrorists.
And he lost his life because of it.
Yeah. So I mean, you want to talk to me about who sacrificed what? I'm gonna have to go with Pat Tillman. Not even a hard question.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. The NFL lost me a number. Well, I'm also a fan of the Buffalo Bills, but so maybe that's part of the reason why I haven't watched.
Oh yeah, because they suck
in the last few years. But yeah, it's kind of the NFL has kind of like lost me for some time. I haven't really watched a ton of football. It wasn't like I was watching a lot of football like when this whole controversy got started, but it was just kind of like I had already kind of moved to condensing the sports that I watch, just because due to time constraints for myself, and I just this is just kind of like the you know what, I guess I don't really need to watch the NFL. So that's kind of it was just kind of the I guess I don't need to see it anymore.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I was never a really big sports guy to begin with, but yeah, completely lost my boner for football. Like, I watched the Super Bowl and stuff, but that, that's more about like, me being able to, hang out with friends and stuff like that. But since like all that's nonsense, like, yeah, it's completely killed my boner for football.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, yeah, because like everything has become so politicized that it's like it's not fun anymore. Because I know because like it's, I mean, kind of a mixed blessing, but it's kind of revealed things that made me like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Or like just makes me like feel no longer enthusiastic for sports, like particularly basketball. I love basketball. I'm purple and gold. I'll be purple and gold to the day I die. But I do not care that LeBron is on the Lakers now. I don't care. I like, especially like after like this idiotic things that he's come out and said. And I'm not saying that he can't have those opinions. I'm just saying that they're idiotic and they're and they're not researched. He's just spouting off like the CNN playbook. Like Trump is a racist, Trump is this, Trump is that, and like he's just parroting whatever CNN has said. So which I know he hasn't then taken the time to research, and so then I would have to take Laura Ingram's position and say shut up and dribble the ball.
Yeah.
Because if he said something like substantial to like if he said something like original, like I know that's not from CNN, that he came up with himself, then I would have been like, okay, I could respect him for that. Like even if it was like something bad mouthing Trump, or his view on like quote unquote black issues, whatever the hell those are. If it didn't sound like something, if it wasn't something that I've heard elsewhere, like specifically like on like CNN or MSNBC, then I'd have a lot more respect for him.
Yeah. If he actually did a little bit of research before he opened his mouth, that'd be nice, but that's never gonna happen.
Of course not, because he's just gonna take Don Lemon's word for it and just repeat whatever Don Lemon has said.
Yeah.
Or as Steven Crowder calls him, dead Johnny Mathis.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Oh boy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, and this is why I've kind of just like I've stuck with baseball and auto racing.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to deal with this shit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm turning my back totally on the Lakers, but if they ever get rid of LeBron, I might tune back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if LeBron actually came out with something unique and original to say about a certain topic, then again I'd be more inclined to start watching again.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
Of course not. So yeah, but I just don't want to because I've been purple and gold for the majority of my life, and so
That's am I.
Yeah, so I can't completely turn my back on my team, so I hope they do great. I know they're not gonna get. I know even with LeBron, they're not gonna get to the finals, or they're not gonna, or they're not. Yeah, but they're definitely not gonna win the finals. But
if they make the finals, I had to admit it's like, goddamn, LeBron is a pretty good.
Right? Yeah, I mean, again, like I'm not doubting his skill or like his work ethic or whatever. Because people like as soon as I say I don't like LeBron, it's like, oh, you're just a hater. So he's just, he works really hard. I was like, yeah, I know all these things.
I'm not doubting his talent or his ability. Clearly he's a good basketball player, but he's just a complete knucklehead when it comes to anything else.
Yeah,
it's like he's great at his profession, no doubt. When it comes to basketball, he's a basketball prodigy, but that's about it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we said all we have to say about this specific topic. So let's get into our movie review for the week, which is
our last Kubrick film of
Our last
Kubrick.
Kubrick. Yeah, we kind of peaked, you know.
It's our bonus.
It's our bonus Kubrick. Yes. So this week we watched Paths of Glory, starring Kirk Douglas, and directed by Steve.
Very much alike.
They do. Yeah. He's definitely his father's son. In terms of like, you know, physically like resembling him. Yeah. So Paths of Glory is about French Army regiment during World War One, and it is commanded by Kirk Douglas's character, I think, Colonel. Oh man, I just watched this movie. Colonel.
I watched it last week. I'm drawing a blank on his name, his character's name.
Yeah, he's a colonel, and he's like this. He commands this regiment, and you know, he's ordered by his superior to take an enemy position, which they have dubbed the anthill.
Right.
And it's a really high risk operation. You know, they won't be reinforced. Casualties are expected to be high. But regardless, he tries to carry out the order of his superior, and half of his regiment don't get out of the trench.
Colonel Dax,
that's right, Colonel Dax. So yes, so they begin the attack, and half the regiment don't get out of the trench. Because one of the company commanders was instantly killed on the outset, and so the men didn't know what to do, and so the half the men that went out of the trenches into no man's land, they retreat back, and Kirk Douglas is blamed for Kirk Douglas' character, Colonel Dax, is blamed for the failure, but instead of punishing him, they decide to punish three of his men, and they do a court martial, and it's really kind of a kangaroo court. And they find those three men guilty, and they sentence them to execution by firing squad. And that's about the synopsis of the film. So now we can get into like more specific things.
So one thing that I've noticed about this, it kind of felt like in the end. So like Kirk Douglas' character, Colonel Dax, it's kind of it's a very dark film in one sense, where you have there's a little bit of, it's not just Dax, but there's there's kind of other characters that are involved, similar to our movie from like last week, where there's not just the main character. There's a bunch of characters where there's stuff, the story behind the story as well, where you have the who is the I'm drawing a blank on who played the kind of the commander of Colonel Dax, but he was kind of they were telling him, it's like, okay, well, we need to take this anthill because this is this is an important part of the war. And for those of you that don't know about World War I, the war was fought at like hundreds of yards at a time. I mean, a lot of times it's like you're just stuck in the trenches, and you're just hoping not to die from gas attacks and whatnot. So to make any advance on the enemy it was pretty much, it was slow going and nearly impossible. And in this case, you had another like commander or like captain that was kind of a coward, and so when they were, kind of doing there was an initial, at the start of the movie, there was an initial movement onto the near towards this territory that didn't get done, and because of, there was this captain and then another low-ranking soldier that was on the same mission, and it's like, you left us and you killed one of our guys, and he's like, well, it's your word against mine. And so he was kind of, this other guy was set up to be kind of the fall guy in the with the three that were from each regiment that were taken for the
right, because because after the failed attack, initially they were gonna like kill. They're like gonna, for those of you who don't know, the word decimate. Decimate actually comes from Latin, which during the Roman Republic Empire times, like if an army had failed, or like badly had failed the empire or something, it would take 10 men from each division. Hence deci 10, decimate. Right. It would take 10 men from each division and kill them as an example to the rest of them. So that's that's where the term decimate comes from. But in this case, they were going to plan to do the same thing, like 1 in every 10 men from the regiment they were going to take and kill. But then they worked it out to where like each of the surviving officers of each division will pick 1 man. So like the three officers that were left were had to pick 1 person at random. And that I think it was a lieutenant. The lieutenant that ran that reconnaissance mission, where he killed one of his own men, he so happened to pick the guy that said like, "Oh, I'm going to turn you in."
Right.
And so that's
This is one of those films where, you kind of start off and, it's at one place, and maybe this was because it is a World War I film, and, a lot of the, when it came to that, there wasn't a whole lot of advancement or movement as far as, like, the war went. It was a lot of, a lot of people stuck in the trenches, and maybe this is what Kubrick was going with this film, because it felt like from the beginning of the film and where we get to the end of the film, it doesn't feel like a lot of the characters necessarily progress, because it felt like the whereas Dax has, like, he's a loyal guy to his men, and he wants justice, but in the end it kind of felt like everyone kind of ended up in the same place where they were, kind of at the from beginning to end. As
right.
Far
as they kind of, there's there was like no real significant arc because everyone just ended up back to where they were at the end, because at the end of the movie, after the execution of those 3 innocent men, Colonel Dax gets a notification, gets his orders that he is to take his men back to the front, and back to where we basically found him at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting though that the general in charge of Kirk Douglas's character, Colonel Dax, he was kind of goaded into taking on the assignment. Because even when the other general came in to give him the assignment, he was like saying like, "Oh, this seems pretty dangerous, and a lot of my men are gonna get killed." And it's like, "Oh well, I guess you're right. No one can do this." and he kind of the other general that was giving him the assignment was kind of playing against his pride because I think uh, that general's reputation was like he was able to do like the impossible. Like his men were able to, you know, was given every shit assignment, and they were able to overcome and get and gain and be victorious in battle. And so so the general's like, oh, okay, I understand. You guys are up to it. You guys have been fighting for a really long time. I'll just give it to somebody else. And then because they also dangled the carrot for the generals, like, oh, like you can get that other star, you can get that second star that you're always so that he used his ambition against him, dangling the carrot of being promoted, and so right. and then it translated to which was interesting because then he did like the same kind of maneuver on Kirk Douglas's character, saying like, oh, I get it, you guys are tired, don't worry about it, I'll send somebody else, and even though he was giving him like the outlook or like the outlook of the battle is like, oh, we're gonna lose 5 people in the initial attack, and then another like 60%, and then like another maybe like 2 or 3%, and then but then and you guys aren't gonna have any backup for at least a day, so you guys have to hold out until then. It's just like like those odds are like well, you just told me I'm gonna lose half of my men.
Yeah, it's just it was kind of one of those like no-win situations, and they a lot of people who
what is it, a Pyrex victory,
like higher ranked officers who just like, yeah, well, we don't really give a shit.
Yeah. So it was gonna basically be a Pyrex victory. Like there would have been so many losses, it might as well have been a defeat.
Yeah. Well, it's just the only really character where there was a few characters where like things changed for them throughout the movie. Obviously, that you have the soldiers that were chosen and killed in the through the court martial, and then the general that was above Colonel Dax. Obviously he was forced to step down and go under investigation after trying to open fire on his own men.
Right.
Those were other than that, everyone kind of just stayed, stayed where they were.
Because even Colonel Dax, he was offered what was that general's name? Like basically his old boss's job. Because when Kirk Douglas brought it to the higher ranking general's attention, like, oh yeah, my boss, he tried to kill his own men. And here's the evidence proving such, and then that general uses it to basically blackmail Colonel Dax's commanding officer. And what was it? It's interesting because he thought that Colonel Dax only gave him that information because he wanted that position.
Whereas he was just trying to save his men, which didn't end up happening.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you still like as the buildup comes to the execution, you're hoping that that these men will get saved. And like even like towards the end when like one of the officers comes and is like reading a piece of paper, you think that it's going to be the thing that clears them, but it's just like restating like why they're being executed, and the men do get executed, and and it so closes like so fitting for a Kubrick film, where everyone dies.
Like it was a very dark ending, and then in the end nothing really changed.
Yeah, no, nothing really changed. Although I'm still trying to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out like the whole ending where like like that German girl's like singing and all the men like just start cheering up.
That was a little curious too, because that kind of came out of nowhere, and there wasn't really a whole lot of. This was a very quick film. It was
Just I mean, of the Kubrick films that we've watched, it's the shortest.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know. I'm still processing this film, and it's not that it's bad. It's just, I mean, it is from the late 50s,
right?
But the one thing that kind of is somewhat frustrating, for as far as character development goes, it just feels like everyone kind of just stayed pat as far as the character went. There wasn't a whole lot of development, and maybe in a sense where Kubrick does kind of more of a realistic, not necessarily a Hollywood ending kind of thing. And when it comes to like war and real life, is there people don't necessarily change from that quickly as a personality, and in a lot of cases where there isn't really justice all super quickly, so there's that's why like everyone kind of stayed the same.
Yeah, I was thinking about the ending.
Yeah, and this is also another one where that was a book. So,
and I was thinking about like how they were before the German girl was brought out. They're being rambunctious and rowdy, as men might be, during a time of war, and they just come off the front line, so they're trying to unwind. But it's interesting that it's a woman, because they're initially like kind of hooting and hollering at her, and then all of a sudden like she starts to sing, and even though like it was in German and it was probably like a German folk song, the men started to become quiet and calm. And all of a sudden, like they, it was almost like they were being soothed,
Yeah.
And that wildness was allowed to be subsided by, civilization through the beauty of of music and civility. And for a moment, they were able to feel like human beings again, not like and not just like cannon fodder or like these wound up men ready to go to war.
Right.
So I don't know. And so maybe it was making like some sort of like statement about about war or the nature of man, or I don't know.
Yeah,
something like that.
It was an interesting movie. Yeah, at the same time, it was like I said, I'm not a fan of the the lack of character development.
Mm.
But like I said, that's probably like Kubrick tends to go towards more of a realistic look at things, and so in real life people don't change that quickly usually, and and this is also, well, like I said, this is another one of his films that's based on a book, and World War I was not was a really rough time for the world, and there's a lot of people that were, it's a very dark time, and this is a very dark movie.
Right.
Nothing really worked out.
Yeah, because I think that this is the first war in human history where it was at an industrial level.
Yeah.
In terms of the weaponry, in terms of troop movement, being able to transport your troops, and just the sheer monstrous nature of it. Just men being mowed down by machine guns for the very first time. Because before, war was very proper. There was like rules, like you fought in a field, muzzle to muzzle, and there was actually like some honor to be derived from battle. But it was but then all these like lords and noblemen sent their sons off to war, and then they all came back in body bags, or or not even at all.
Yeah, this was.
And so we were like, this is like the first war where we were losing people at an industrial level.
Yeah. So what are your how would you rate Paths of Glory, Andy? What would you rate it as?
Out of 5, I give it a 3.
Yeah, I'm probably about a 2.5 to 3 myself.
Well, I mean, I'm giving credit again for technical stuff, because I don't know I don't know about the copy you saw, but mine was like really well, mine one said that it was restored through the UCLA film department or whatever, and so and also again because Stanley Kubrick, he's really good at the technical aspect of filmmaking, and so all the scenes were like rich and well exposed, and
it was shot great.
It was shot great. So so again, I'm giving him credit for non-artistic, not necessarily artistic or philosophical reasons, but just purely practical and technical ability.
Yeah, it's just this is like a movie where one of the first movies that we've reviewed where there's really not even one moment where I can look at where it's like, here's something that we can take away, or like a great line or anything like that. It just kind of
because like you were saying, there's no character development. Everyone just is back at where they started. Not unlike Clockwork Orange, where because even though the character of Alex does go through this progression, and he does go through some sort of character growth, he ultimately ends up exactly where he was at the beginning.
Yeah, I just with the difference between this movie and that movie though is that there are moments within A Clockwork Orange where there's definitely memorable moments in the. And maybe it is, the shock factor in some of the things, but there's so many moments in that film that are, memorable, and it's like, this. While I didn't necessarily like the ending of the movie, I thought there were certain points in the movie where it's like, this is a great line, or or kind of a great scene. Here was just more. It wasn't necessarily I wouldn't call it a bad film. It's not a bad film, but it's not a good film either. It's kind of. It's and maybe this is one of his first films, so that it's
definitely an early film.
And it's like I said, it's not bad. The cinematics are definitely you can tell. You see his. That's done great, but the there's nothing really memorable about it. That's the thing that I
you just can't get past.
That's why I rate it so low. There's just nothing that I can really wow. There's nothing that stood out to me as here's a great moment in the film. Here's a great scene from the film. There was nothing really like that, and then. It's not, all the actors did great. The cinematics were great. The the story was, you know, okay. It just there was no like, you know, wow factor. Something that I could take away from it. It was just kind of a movie.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, there you have it. I gave it a 3. Robert gives it 2.5 to 3. So, yeah, I guess we could say that, you know, watch it, but, you know, it doesn't have to be part of the top 5.
No, the other films that we I would say so we watched 5 Kubrick films. Spartacus was my number 1 out of that of the list that we watched.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, Barry Lyndon's just under that. And then my third favorite was the what was the first one that we watched? Because it was before. What did we do before A Clockwork Orange?
Dr. Strangelove.
That's right. I would say Spartacus. Spartacus, Barry Lyndon, Clockwork Orange, and then it's kind of a tie for me with Dr. Strangelove, and then this one.
All right. Well, that is our review of Paths of Glory. Watch it. Don't watch it. I don't care. Do whatever you want.
That's so wishy-washy. I
know. It's so unlike me. I'll say watch it if you have a free weekend.
Yeah, if you're a Kubrick fan, you gotta watch it just because this is one of his first films, and you start to see like in the cinematics, just on that alone, you kind of see like what he's doing and.
Right, you definitely start seeing like where like, you know, kind of stuff that you will eventually see like in Shining or Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
You know, you kind of see those you know, early elements in these films, and then, you know, you see them a little bit more or less mastered in the subsequent films to follow.
Right, but if you're looking for good, you know, a great story. I pass.
All right. Well, we have done an hour and 30 with some change.
Yeah, so and I had to go pee, so we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so let's wrap this up. Yeah, I guess yeah, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And don't forget to check out the library of videos, the main podcast. We actually dropped the newest episode of the main show. Check that out. Tomorrow the excerpts from the first episode will be dropped. So, you know, if you don't have time to sit and watch the entire hour, then we got you. You know, we got you some short clips for you to enjoy. Don't forget to also follow us on our various social media accounts: Twitter at PodcastTOJ and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. All right. With all that being said, we thank you for joining us. See you next week, and we say goodnight.
See you later.